Hola, qué bueno saludarlos. Hello.
And we are live.
And we're happy to be back.
Oh, it does feel good.
After a long time.
And it has been a very long time.
And very busy time.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot.
Yeah, so this is Series 2, Episode 1. We're not going to call it that on YouTube, but it is going to be known as Series 2. We had an interesting Series 1, didn't we?
Yeah.
Let's start there. What were some of your highlights from Series 1? What did you like?
I love to see how, about what we talk about or like the community.
Both? Anything?
I just love to see how people can relate to some of the things we were talking about.
Yeah.
Especially because sometimes, when I'm at work or something like that, I look for a good podcast, and sometimes it's difficult to find what you're looking for.
That's right.
And then we receive some comments from people that saying that they really needed to hear that. So that's really good because you feel like it's been helpful in a way, and that's all we want, to help people.
I was pleasantly surprised, actually, because I like both elements. I think we've gone down a road where we've tried to do a week in where we talk about things that we have been through, or elements of our relationship, or things that we think are important to talk about, or just good content. But I think the guest element has been great as well. Bringing people on to talk about areas that they might be, quite equipped in, and that's been really fantastic as well. But I thought that people would be more inclined, I've said this to a few people, more inclined to listen to the ones with people because it's people's views, and but actually people have really and some people have preferred actually the ones like this where it's you and I, which is really interesting. But it means that there's conversation to be had, and people really have used this as an opportunity to stop it and have conversation with themselves as couples, and just start good conversation. Were there any episodes that stood out for you as such?
All of them.
I put you on the spot a little bit there, didn't I? You enjoyed talking to Tally's was good.
6 months ago.
Tally, but that's the thing, yeah. The other thing is we finished the episode.
The Tally one was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Because it talks about forgiveness.
And the psychological aspects of that.
To forgive someone.
Stuff like that.
So if you haven't seen it, go and have a look because it's very good.
Definitely go and have a look at it. I think I'm just going to try and remind you a little bit of what we watched there. So we talked with, let's have a look at the list of ones that we did. So we started off with like an intro one with McCaws. We started up talking about the adult conversation. I can't offhand remember what we talked about there.
About growing up and how difficult that is.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, right. And then the power of adoption with Rush. That was incredible. I love that one. Finding the right person to sharing our experiences of that, and whether that exists, and how do we find that. You talked about the loss of your dad with Luis and Jess in Spanish, which was brilliant. Leaving the past behind. We talked about the power of the tongue with Zaire. Only God can judge me, and judgment, and we spoke about our experiences of that, which was really good. El Perdón with Tali and Chola, which was really interesting, and that's been a lot of people were really engaged with that. We had George Cruz on. We talked about the uprising of the Christian man, which was about money, which was an interesting one. People controversial, maybe a little bit for some people, but just a good. We talked to a Christian Olympic champion, Christian Taylor. He was great, brought a lot of insight into being at the top of his sport. Just fantastic. Build Your House, the foundations that people live from. I'm just quickly doing an overview. We had Azazi Origidi, the Celtic player, who's since gone to play for another club, but he's on loan. Nation's Expectations.
Healing Through Pain with Karen and Brandon.
That was incredible.
And Happiness. That was one of my favorites also.
Definitely.
It's really powerful to hear their testimony about this. If you have time, go and have a look.
Definitely. And it's in both languages, so no excuses.
Yeah, exactly. True Happiness with the End Goal.
Yeah.
And Defending in Faith.
Yeah, with Jason McCarthy. That was another brilliant one. He gave us a lot of insight into that. So that was fantastic. So, and we had a few months off in between, didn't we?
Yeah.
It wasn't intended to be this long.
But because of COVID, we haven't been to Guatemala, and then we went to Guatemala, and then after that, we just decided to have some family time with my family. Then my family came here to England, and then I've been like family all this time.
Family. Yeah. It's been family time, and we've enjoyed it. I've started a new job in January, so that we were getting to terms with that. And what else has happened? Is there anything else?
I think both have been having like family events where we needed to be closer to our families.
Yeah, that's true.
So we disconnect a little bit from social media and podcasts and everything. Even from the shop. I'm having a new collection next week.
Great.
So that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been a bit away from everything.
That's it. It's been nice. Back. And we also wanted to make sure that if we restarted and got it going again, we wanted to do it properly.
Yeah.
So we feel like we're in a good position to do that. And we've got some good people lined up. We've been having those conversations and kickstarting. We haven't got the full thing sorted, but it's just the fun of going, this person could talk about this and this person, and reaching out and having good conversations. It's just the best thing. So today, shall I get in and talk about what we're going to be talking about today? Affiliation separation. So what we're going to be talking about is the idea, first of all, that we're affiliated to something, whether that be a group, relationships, a company, whatever that may be. And the main idea is how the idea of separating away from that affiliation. So we're affiliated to these people. When is it right to come away from these people? When is it right to stay with these people? So I guess what is affiliation? First of all, get started, on, because I think that's important. And that affiliation looks different for everybody else. I gave it an example when I was explaining it and talking about what my kind of vision behind it was Nanny has the business making dogs' clothes, bandanas and such. And she had, when she started it, she had about, how many models would you have had at one time?
Like 15.
Yeah, 10 or 15.
No, 10 probably.
10 to 15 definitely, of people that she would send the products out to free. And then they would just post about it. So they obviously, their win is they get a product and the promotion from Thea's Instagram page. And then you would get the win of having different photos and be able to access their followers. So they are affiliated with you. So that's a kind of an affiliation from a business perspective. But also as friends, like we're affiliated to a certain group. We might be, our school uniforms when we were at school meant that we were affiliated with a certain school. Being affiliation is all about being a part of
something.
Being a part of something. And today we're going to specialize at that kind of separation aspect. When is it right to separate? Now, we're not going to cover all areas because it's very complicated. We might realize as we get into it that there are more things that we can talk about in different things. But when is it right to come away from an affiliation? Is that all right?
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. There's one affiliation I want to talk about, and that is the Mason Greenwood situation. So it's just a quick one. Here's an example of a controversial affiliation where the Man United footballer, there are allegations, that's a fair way to put it, or allegations of just inappropriate behavior with his girlfriend, like of kind of the rape extent. Very extreme situation. Yeah, I mean, there was a voice recording and it didn't sound in his favor whatsoever. So everybody's basically taken the judgment that he's guilty of that. And at the moment, he's still a Man United player. Like, he's still on the websites and everything, but he's not playing with Man United anymore. So that's an affiliation. And the reason we kind of think about that is because Man United are obviously, he is a part of Man United. And Man United are affiliated to him because Mason Greenwood in himself is a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it gets really, really complicated for Man United because, of course, Man United haven't done anything wrong to Mason Greenwood, but Mason Greenwood has done something that potentially can affect the reputation of Man United, which is a pretty scary thing. to think. And at the moment, they're trying to go through these court, it's going to court and trying to find out what will happen of that. But that's just an example of an affiliation that may separate off the fact that if someone gets found guilty of something, there's going to be a separate. There potentially will be a separation of affiliation. Have you got any experience or any kind of thing that you think of when I say kind of affiliation or to be part of something that comes to mind straight away?
No, really, like straight away. No, I have to think about it.
So I'm going to throw the idea of church affiliation to you. When I say kind of church affiliation and separation from churches because we don't want to be affiliated with certain churches or something like that, where does that go for you? Like, what do you think of?
Yeah, I haven't really had an experience about that, but I guess if for example, let's not say like about churches but if you see, or like a church like doesn't have the ideas or the beliefs or the basis that you believe in, that you try to just separate from that because they're going to try to put something that is not correct. Or...
Yeah. And there's a point where you go, okay, to one extent, like every church, there's no perfect thing as church, but there's one extent of, as you rightly said, there's this element of going, actually, I don't want the wrong teaching either. Yeah. So where do you draw the line? And that's exactly what we want to talk about today in our kind of, in our relationships with one of the first things that came to mind when it came to affiliation is my friendships. When you talk about the kind of the culture that we're from very different cultures, right? And would you say that you grew up in a circle of non-Christians and Christians, or would you say that was majority Christians or majority non-Christians? How was yours?
The majority non-Christians until I was like 22, 21.
Okay.
That I started getting involved with more Christian friends.
Okay.
But before that, it was non-Christian.
Yeah. And how was that for you, like growing up in that environment? How did you find the idea that you were surrounded by the majority of non-Christians when you're a Christian trying to say yourself you want to be surrounded with good people that have got good kind of biblical teachings for your life because you want to be led the right way? How do you find being around people that aren't?
Yeah, I feel like I grew up in a school that they were all very respectful of everyone's values. They were all very respectful, and I'm sure if one of my friends from school are here in this podcast, I'm sure they're gonna say the same. We were very close. We were like a family, so we all respect each other's. But I had to be very careful in not feeling like the pressure of doing things that were against my values and beliefs.
Exactly. That's good. And I guess the idea is, where does it get to a point where you say, like, what do you do when that pressure becomes too high? Like, especially at school, because you can't really go anywhere.
No, for example, I remember in Guatemala, we have this tradition when a girl turns 15, they do a big party on the 15th. It's like the Sweet 16 in America, and it's the 15th biggest party. It's like a wedding party.
It is. I've been to one.
Yeah. And so everyone, they were like, and they were starting to drink a little bit, not too much, because as I said, my school, they will have like good values and things like that. But after 10 o'clock or something like that, I knew it was time to leave. Because even though it was fine and fun being with my friends, after that time, they could start drinking or smoking and all of these things that if I still there, it was going to be difficult to know. It was going to be difficult to say no. So I prefer to put myself away from that instead of walking on the edge of, oh, am I not,
Why do you think most people don't do that? Like I was saying, why do you think most people get caught up in the idea of, I'm going to stay, I'm going to do whatever I need to do?
I feel accepted, feel accepted.
Yeah.
And that applies not only for friendships, that also applies for jobs. Sometimes people hate their jobs, but they just like that social status that job gave them. Yeah. I had that when I was working for Coca-Cola. It's a big company, but it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I also have friends that might hear this, and we were together when I was there. And it was so difficult, but I didn't want to leave my job only because it had a status, only because I feel, oh, I work in a very good company and I'm only 22, 23. I'm going to be very successful in life. Oh, look at me, I'm being successful. I was probably not saying it out loud, but deep inside, when you're young, you just want to be successful. You just want to feel that people around you think that you're doing great in life.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it. I was so ill. I was very, very ill to the point that I was sleeping 3 hours to 4 hours a day for like 2 years and a half, because I was studying. I was in the university at the same time and working there. I started working at 5 a.m. because I was working for New York and Washington. So they are 2 hours ahead. 5 a.m. till 5 p.m. 12-hour shifts. Difficult, horrible, but I wanted to be there only to have that social status. And it's really sad. But now that I am old, I accept it. At the time, I didn't know what was happening.
No.
That happened in relationships too. Sometimes girls are in very, very abusive relationships.
Wow.
They know that the men are not respecting them. They disrespect them over and over again, but they don't leave them because they feel loved, they feel accepted.
Well, it might be not the greatest place of belonging, but it's still a place of belonging, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if they go out into the big world, they've got even less of a place of belonging. So that place of belonging is might be a 2 out of 10 if it was, in an ideal situation. But the world on its own, in the cold and the rain, is a 0. That's not very good at all. And actually, it might be that you need to take a 0 in order to get to a 6, 7 for things to get better ultimately.
Yes.
So sometimes it is right to leave that sort of situation. I've always been a bit of a chameleon, and what I mean by that is I've always been very good at changing myself according to the circumstances I'm in. So if I'm in, and I've always been able to change up, I guess that's why I'm in a kind of a sales role, not a sales role, but I've always been good at sales or good at convincing. I've got the woo characteristics where it's about encouraging people to do things and getting alongside people. But that has been something that I haven't used or haven't always used for good. Far from it, leading people to do the wrong things. And that's been something I've learned, is like, actually, the actual winning others over is a great characteristic, but it is to be used well. And I think when I went to America and I was there for the first couple of weeks, I went on kind of a YWAM base where everybody was Christian. Everybody was Christian and God came into everything. And it was weird. Like, as in, it was weird for me because I didn't come from a culture where God came into everything. I came from a culture where God was in church. God wasn't in a football match. God wasn't in, dinners. God just, do you know what I mean? He wasn't at the table with us having dinner. He wasn't at these other things. Okay, you pray about stuff, but like it didn't come into your conversations. It was weird for me because I was suddenly challenged with this idea that actually, I'm talking about, you sing a song in church and it's all about putting God at the center and putting God and bringing God into everything you're doing and making God your everything. Then why would it be weird to go into an environment where God's in everything? Like, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I found it weird because the reality was I was singing about God being my everything in church just as a kind of matter of course. This is what we do. But it wasn't my everything. And I think what I began to realize is that I was seeking approval wherever I went for, and I would just adapt and grow in order to seek approval. So I think that's a big thing. I think that's a really big thing when it comes to our affiliation. We could become affiliated with things because it and we allow it to define us, don't we? And that's a really deep thought, as in, like, it made me think, right, what elements of my life do I need to bring God into? Where does God need to go with me? Where do I need to be defined by God rather than be defined by the world and the people around me? And I think that was a major, and that's still something I struggle with actively. Now it's like and it's from a good place. Like, you want to be liked, you want to be approved of, but you don't want to be approved of if it compromises who God says you are. And I think that's where we talk about, actually, there are good places to be able to live in circumstances.
Yeah, and it's okay to live like, I always thought, well, I'm not going to stop talking to these people because that's rude, and I don't want to be rude. I don't want them to feel that I'm rejecting them. And also the Bible said that you need to love everyone. And yes, like the Bible said that we need to love everyone, but loving everyone doesn't mean that you have to be with them all the time.
Yeah.
You have to learn to put boundaries and learn to say no and learn to say no. Don't be a people like pleasing people all the time. Yeah. Because otherwise that will only consume your mind, your personality, your goals, your desires, like literally everything. And that's how people end up very frustrated in life, because they have been trying to please everyone else without thinking what is good for them. So I'm not saying let's be selfish, but there is a side of us that also need to think about us, because we are the temple of God. And as a temple of God, we need to look after it the same way we look after our physical body. We need to look after our mental health and our soul and mind and everything. Spirit.
That's the thing. But what we do is we allow that love to be accepted, or that love even for other people to go above our love for God. And that's the thing, is there's really an order to this stuff. There's really a priority, and that priority should be that we're seeking God and loving God first, and then we love people. But then we don't allow that second one to become first, because it's there on purpose. It's there to go. Your authority comes, and your definition of who you are comes from Christ, and then that allows you then to love others. But I think it's absolutely right. I had some friends a while ago that I had known for many years, and when I became a Christian, I was such a passionate evangelist. I was like, I've got to use my communication gift and tell them, and I'm in their life so that I can share my faith with them. And that was great. I mean, the intentions were there. Like, I was all for it, and I was like, I've got to do life with these people, and I've got to. And it came to a point where I knew that it basically became obvious quickly that although I had the best intentions, it was going to be really difficult, because I was going to also be thrown into situations that were going to be difficult for me. That I'm not just accepting Jesus and it's like perfect, it's all good for you. In fact, the Christian understanding is that Jesus comes and starts a process where he brings kingdom, but that isn't fully brought. It's started, but it's not fully brought, and it doesn't get fully brought until Jesus returns. So there's this kind of process where, yes, we're shown kingdom, we're shown how to live through Jesus, but actually, there's a fly flying around. But actually, that's yet to be, because we still live in a world that's full of sin, temptation. So we're not exempt from that, because we accept Jesus as truth and Lord and Savior. We're still acknowledging the fact that although we are born again and new, and refreshed and being transformed to the likeness of Christ, that actually we're still in a world where we still need to be stewards of what we do, who we spend time with, what we say, everything, that Christ comes into our everything. And I guess it took a moment, actually. Like, I knew it was difficult, and I kind of had been questioning, are these people that I really need to hang around with? Like, I love these people, like I want them to do well, and I want them to, but am I that person? Like, that was the difficult thing, is because I had thought, if I don't tell them, who will? And there is a certain truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't explain to them who Christ is, then they won't know. And as I say, there's an element of truth to that. But at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm downplaying God's role, and I'm making it all about me.
Really...
Like I'm saying that actually it's my responsibility for their salvation, and it's not. Like I can do a lot, but I think God also honors the fact that I would come to God before God and go, actually, it's as much as I love these people, actually it's more of a damage on my relationship with you than it will be. Like there will be no fruit from this. Like I won't be able to bring these people, and let them know about my faith in this situation anyway. So it was really tough. And actually we had a bit of a fallout. There was a bit of a fallout, and that was the sign really for me. That was a big confirmation that I was like, these people aren't right for me right now. These people aren't right for me anymore. And that was it. And so that gave me that kind of opportunity. It was a blessing. It was God going, I've been speaking to you for a while on this. These people aren't living the lifestyle you want to live anymore. You were living like that. This isn't what you said no to, when you accepted me. And so I was like, flip, okay. And it was the best thing I ever did. Honestly, I don't want to be dragged down to the places that they go in, the things that those guys are doing. Go and do it. That's great. Go and do it. But I'm not with you, And so it took me that moment to realize that actually, one, it's not in my strength. It's in God's.
Wow.
And two, it's like separate yourself when the time's needed. I did give it a fair go. I did. And there was some great conversations that came out of that. But in general, I was fighting a losing battle. And I had to separate myself from it. It was really tough.
Wow, that's really good. And that's really powerful because I've seen it change. I don't know if I can share this with you.
Go ahead.
But I've seen the change in store after he took that step away from them. Not in a bad way, not in a way of like, oh, don't talk to people that is non-Christian. That's absolutely not what we're saying. But what we're saying is there's a point where you can tell people about Jesus and then think about, are this group of people, is this person really bringing something to my life? And if not, you can have them, but just like not too close to you. You can have them as we are friends, but we are not gonna be meeting each other all the time. You're not gonna be influenced by the other person or going for advice for that person. And he reminds me of this verse that I want to read to you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then talk about something.
Hit us with the bars, though.
You read it and then I'll talk about it.
Come on. It's Proverbs 13:20, and it says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm.
And that is so true. So true, because if you walk, I remember, I don't know how to translate it to English, but I'm going to try. There is like my mom and my grandma used to always say, if like,
mi abuela y mi mamá
el que anda en la miel, algo se le pega. Whoever's go or walk around honey, something is going to stick to them.
Whoa. Yeah.
Entonces, so, like that's true. If you see, like I read once a quote that says, you become like the 5 closest people you have around you.
You are what you eat.
And that is so true. So true. You become really like that. And it doesn't only apply for friendships. It's also applying for relationships. Like I've heard a lot of girls that said, well, the problem is if I'm not with this person, then how is this person going to know about God? And they feel that is their job, as Stuart was saying, the salvation of this guy. And the only one that can convince someone's heart is God. It's the Holy Spirit. Like our job is to love.
Yeah.
Love doesn't mean you have to be with them every single day. Love is knowing when something also is harmful for you and like walk away from that. As he says on here, I'm just going to put it again. He says, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. And that's true. As hard as it sounds, as difficult and as cruel as it sounds, it's true. Like, if we decide that we're not going to change the circle of friends or the people that are damaging us, it's not very, it's the same like what we were talking with Tali. Tali is very, very clever and really good psychologist. And she was mentioning, like, forgiving someone doesn't mean that you have to live with that person hugging and, well, because I forgive you, we have to be together all the time. It doesn't mean that. So loving someone also doesn't mean that you have to be all the time. Loving someone is putting boundaries and saying, okay, I'm going to be here for you, but am I learning something from this person? Is this person having a positive effect in my life? Is this friendship really adding in my life, or is this person dragging me down? Like, is this person taking all my energy? Is this person that always tells me all their problems, and then you try to help them and then they do whatever they want? And then it's like, if the person is not hearing you, you can be there for them, you can love them, but you're not going to be like investing all your energy and have it as a, because I feel like sometimes it's just draining you.
It's difficult because it's really a case by case situation.
Yes, there's exceptions.
There's knowing, okay, when do we plug into something? When do we plug away from something? But I guess what we're trying to say is that it's not, I guess, especially from a Christian perspective, it's not always a bad thing to separate yourself from something else.
Yes.
I think I guess that's the bottom line. When and how you do that is totally, is totally dependent on the situation. There is time where you feel like you might want to come away from something, and you shouldn't. You should stay there. Absolutely. We look at things like marriage or relationships, which are so easy to just walk away from. Oh, well, it doesn't bring value to my life, and it doesn't add this, and it doesn't add that. And actually, that's like, especially with marriage, that commitment is something we should really be looking to work at, to work together with and pursue at. Again, not all of the time, but the majority of the time should be what we're working through will only make us stronger if we work through it rather than give up. Giving up doesn't add discipline to anything, but it should be working through things. Some Christians may disagree with me and say we need to work through everything.
No.
We don't really stand on that point. But what it is saying is, we would say where we can, absolutely work on it. When it's really, really difficult, work on it, push through it and do that. There is a place for staying, but also there is a place for leaving. There is a place for getting up and going, this isn't enough. This isn't this isn't the right place for me. I'm not gonna continue to be here.
Especially if, like, there are cases where I've heard a lot of Christians, and I know this could be a little bit, some people will disagree a lot on this, but I just want to say this. Some Christians say, well, no, as a woman, you have to stay with your husband, and you have to forgive everything, and you have to stay no matter what happened, and just forgive him all the time. And that's not really what God thinks for us, I think, in my opinion. Like, God wouldn't like us to be suffering, one after another. So in our point of view is, like, if you're in a toxic relationship, if you are in a relationship where you are having fights every day, like verbal abuse, like psychologically abuse, like physical abuse, and all of these things are happening, then work together on those things. Like, don't give up, like, this person insulted me, so I'm walking away from this relationship. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is, if it's difficult, work together on it. If the other person is not willing to work at all, if the other person is, like, we always recommend counseling. It is amazing, and it helps you to deal with things, like, in a deeper level. But if you cannot, or if one of you is not willing to change, or is not willing to accept their mistakes, or is not willing to accept, yes, I failed on that, over and over again, then it's time to consider and to ask God, of course, for guidance. But it's time to think about if that person will ever change, if it's willing to change. If
the change is important enough as well. Like, is it something that you need to look at? Do you know what I mean? If someone's, if it's like, really extreme, then yes. But is it something that we go, because we're not just talking about big things, could talk about small things, right?
Yeah.
It could be that person's always going to be that way. How do we adjust to that around that thing? You know what I mean? Knowing it's all, because it's not as black and white as those situations.
No, yes. Sorry, I'm not saying like, for example, this person, simple things that you can adjust.
Yeah.
There are some things like you can adjust. So, for example, Stuart can give an example of me and I'll give an example of him.
Okay. My example would be putting stuff away in the kitchen. That's not real or anything. I'm just an example. I just plucked it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that you cannot. That is something that annoys you, but it's something that you can adjust to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like I'm gonna. Right, we're not saying flipping. Grab your solicitor, sack them off, leave them, finish with it, end the relationship because you can't put the spatula away. You know what I mean?
And mine is like,
don't even have a spatula.
Like we have a basket of clothes, and Stuart always. But I thought it was a Stuart, but apparently most men do the same. So that gives me hope a little bit. Yeah. But there's a basket, very nice basket for him to put his clothes.
Put your hand up where you are if you're listening to this.
And then
that is me.
And then I said, Stuart, please, like it's literally 1 centimeter away from the the box. Just put it in the box. And I always find all the clothes like literally next to the box.
Yeah, that's where they go.
So it's something that annoyed me so much before, but it's something that I can adjust. It is annoying, but really I can live with it and I can adjust to this and I can, we can work together. Sometimes he's like, oh yeah, he put it in the basket. Sometimes he forgets. So have a bit of grace on that. But on the other side are things that are not acceptable, like for example, physical abuse.
Yeah,
that is not acceptable in any level, If something like that happens, you just can't.
Go on. Sorry, I'm just.
Okay.
Well, I just believe there's redemption in a lot of this stuff.
No, but I don't feel this redemption of physical abuse at all. Yeah. At all, because that is you just went like above that boundary of respect, and then when that is broken, respect is broken. It's nothing more in a relationship.
We've come to the moment in the show where we just differ on a little bit of this thing, but we differ on it because of our own different personal experiences. But basically, what you're saying is, and agree with me or disagree with me, that if people are in physically damaging relationships, they should get out of there.
Yes.
Now,
as soon as possible.
I agree with you to an extent, but again, if that person's done it and is willing to go, actually, I've done this and I'm willing to seek the right help and work through that, then I believe redemption is available in every situation if both people are ready to work on it.
I don't know. I'll disagree a little bit on
That's okay.
that.
That's okay.
But this is a good thing about podcasts, that we all have different opinions.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like there isn't like, because really, if you really love someone, you're not gonna go. You just aren't gonna cross that. If you, for example, you really respect the Queen of England.
Semi-respect.
Elizabeth. How do you call her name?
Elizabeth.
So you really respect her. Like if you really respect someone, you're not gonna go and she annoys you and she's gonna like bang on the face, because there's a respect on that.
Of course.
So yeah, but what we're trying to say with this is like
put some respect on her name.
There are situations where you are allowed to walk away from relationships, even in a marriage. I know that some people would disagree with this. I'm not saying walk away straight away, but what I'm saying is go to counseling together, work on everything. Don't take the first easy way out.
Don't do it.
Work really hard to restore marriage, because every marriage can be restored. We all have issues.
Facts.
Like we've been through a lot with Stuart, and we've been to counseling, we've been to everything, and we learn and we are growing.
Yeah.
So there are different ways to change and to do something about it, but you are allowed to also put a boundary and said, you can walk away from that relationship because it's something that is affecting your mental health or physical abuse or over and over again, like infidelity and things like that. So that's also another example of a relationship that you need to walk away.
Definitely. In 1 Corinthians, it tells us that bad company corrupts good character. and it says that don't be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common, or what fellowship can light have with darkness? I guess just from a more spiritual aspect is looking at, what real damage can be done, and actually what light can come out of darkness, really. And the truth is, not much. We know that from you can go down a scientific line, you can go down a spiritual line, not much comes from it. In fact, that's Corinthians, obviously written by Paul. The letters back to Corinth. It's really interesting, because if you look into that kind of, he's writing the letter back to the people of Corinth, the church that he set up. He goes to Corinth traveling and to let them know about Jesus. And he spends about 1.5 years in Corinth before leaving again. And then he hears that things aren't going the way that he intended them to go, and certain things are happening, and addresses them in the letters on certain situations. One of them being kind of unity. They're kind of aligning themselves to certain leaders that are all saying the same message. Paul, some of them follow Jesus, some of them follow Paul, some of them in different leaders. So unity is a factor, but also sexual immoral behavior is an issue. But what's interesting is that actually in Corinth's known, like, forget the church for a second, the whole city is known as a place that they even basically have idols for sex. Like, there's prostitutes in temples in Corinth. It's an element of the culture that they're in. So he comes and sets up a church, right? But he sets up a church and he tells people about Jesus, and they begin, this journey of following Jesus, and they're very young Christians. But their actions don't weigh up, because they don't see it to be wrong, because their culture is all about having sex with this person, and going to the temples and having sex with prostitutes. That's different for them than their faith in Jesus. They believe that they can have a faith in Jesus as well as do all of these things, but it's because the culture that they're in affects the character of who they are. And this is going to happen everywhere, that actually the culture that a church is in, a culture that a group of people, Christians are in, is going to have an effect on the Christians. But we also have an active decision on how much we would like that to be. So I think for some issues, yes, it's going into a case, but it's being aware that if you're in a culture like that, how much do you have to cut yourself off from that? How much is it right to get involved in a culture like that? Where is right to go out and do that? Some people, we talk about, going on a night out, and actually the night out element is wrong. But if you know that the later it gets, the worse it gets for you, it's about cutting that off. It's about actually separating yourself from this kind of alignment that you've got with the group that you're in, right? It's about saying, actually, I need to end this now. Or if it's drinking, for example, it's about saying, okay, I like a drink, but then I need to leave because things get dangerous for me. And are you willing and prepared to? And this is why people aren't, is because they're often led by others rather than taking the initiative themselves to say, actually, I'm going to step up and do this. And I think God honors that. And I think there's something that's taught in the discipline of doing that, to go, actually, like me, obviously separating from a friend's great. It was kind of a forced issue, but I also believe I could have worked on those relationships, made it better, and it would have been all right again, but I would have still been in the same situation with the same issues of going to the wrong places, being with the wrong people, hearing the wrong things, getting caught up in the gossip culture. And that wasn't good for me. And actually I had moved areas, which helped massively. I was away from that kind of culture, and that's been a huge blessing for me, really. And I'm able to create in a different area the environment I would like to have. And that's been, actually, I'm not afraid to say that's been a majority Christian culture, because that's what I feel like honors God the most. But also, actually, I've got non-Christian friends, but it equips me better with non-Christian friends, So I think that's been a positive a positive step for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me as an individual, I think everybody else, but that's it, isn't it? It's about going right as an individual, or if you listen to this as a couple, because we know various couples do that. It's about going, actually, as a couple, where are we best giving? Where are we best fed? Yeah, and weighing up what takes priority in certain times. We go to some things just to give, but we go to other things just to be fed. And so it's like where is that? Talk that out with each other. If you're listening to this now in a car journey, because I know some people do that, long car journeys, stop this now and ask yourselves the question, is there or are there places, do you feel like every place that you go to as a couple are good for you? Are these good places to go to? Are they good communities to be in? And talk also about, if, you know, as individuals, in a loving way, of course, maybe talk about the fact that you might feel that your other half, I think it's loving to talk about that fact that actually that group of people aren't so good for another. You know, obviously don't let the conversation get too heated, or heated at all if you can avoid it. But I think it's good to be like, actually, these group, in my opinion, are the best for you, and I see a difference in. And that's what Nanny's saying, is actually for a long time I was a different person, and actually if I just accepted myself for being me, I was able to make bolder decisions. And we talked about that, and we got over that and carried on.
And as this is the year, like, bad companies ruins good morals. Do you read this one now?
Yeah.
But so if bad company ruins good morals, the opposite is if you have good companies, it will build your good morals. You know, it will build your morals. It will build like something good on you.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful in who we choose to have close to us.
Yeah.
We're not saying be exclusive and don't talk to anyone, you know, and no, because we both, Stuart and I, we both love people. We love getting to know everyone. We love being there for everyone. But mainly we're talking about like just friendships, relationships, jobs, and everything that are toxic and are consuming your life in a way. You know, if you feel drained after something, then think about it. Why you're feeling drained? Is it for the good reasons or not? Or, you know, and then reconsider if it's good for you or not to have those friends.
Yeah. There's
that relationship or that job.
There's a phrase that says, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future."
Ooh.
Whoa,
and what if I don't have friends? I don't have future.
But it's about it's basically about saying, like, if you're around people that pull you back, you'll be pulled back in the future. You know, if you're around people that want to bring you forward and grow, you will grow. And I know that's such a common thing to say. It's such a, oh, well, of course, duh. But like, you like apply it, like try and do your best to apply it and go, is that good for me? Is that not good for me?
Yeah.
And, you know, learn from it. It's not bad to go through a situation like that. As long as you're coming away from it going, what did I learn in that situation? How do I avoid, or how do I learn the most from this for the future? Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to cover in today's first episode back?
Yeah. We miss you, friends, if you're listening. Te extraño, Guatemala. No.
Vamos, Brazil.
I think it's very important to that. Yeah. And you will see the change. You will see who are your real friends, who are with this, you will identify that some friends, some people, they call you friends, but they just want something from you, and it's okay. Like you can give them love, you know, you can give what you have, but just remember that some relationships are to give, some others are to keep close and to learn from them.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's good. All right, should we call it?
Yeah,
brilliant, guys.
It's been really nice to talk to you again. even though we can't see you.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely lovely to be back. Guys, if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button. It helps us more than you know. And subscribe on the platforms that you are listening to this in podcast form.
And let us know the comments.
Yeah.
If you think that there's something that we can, if you disagree on something, let us know in the comments.
We'd like to hear us talk about.
Yeah.
And share our views on things.
Yeah.
Non-Christian, Christian, we'll share what we're at. It doesn't matter where you come at this from, but we will definitely share our views.
And if we need to change, like we need to improve on something, you know, we are never coming here to say like, oh, we know everything about life. Absolutely not.
That's not the point.
We are learning all the time, and the more I feel like the more I grow up, the more that I feel like I haven't. That I don't know anything, you know, the more I need to learn about everything.
I'm going to add one more thing, is that actually we don't bring people on this podcast because these people are perfect examples of what we believe in. Does that make sense? Like, we love people, but we know that people make mistakes and people believe different to us. So it's not a place where we aim to bombard people with facts and this is how you should live your life. What we're doing is creating a place that we can talk about different ways of living, and actually that are kind of focused around it is primarily Christian content, but it's understanding that actually we've got different views on things. And as I grow up and I mature, I realize that life isn't as black and white as I once thought it was. And it's just interesting to hear people's different perspectives on things. So I've kind of battled with this idea of like, you condone a certain belief because you're having it on your platform. This isn't really the place for us to go, this is the be all and end all. And there will be things that people say on the podcast that maybe guests that we've got that we don't agree with, but we want to create a safe place where we can talk about it. Isn't that life, right? We disagree with people, we agree people, but we're all humans. And we make mistakes and come at it from different perspectives. Guys, thanks for today. It's been absolutely fantastic.
It's been lovely.
Hope to see you soon. Bless you guys. Take care.